if I really want to improve on this, it's not gonna happen by itself. I need to like start setting notes, reminders, you put it on the fucking whiteboard. I need to do something so that it pops out at me. Maybe I need to fucking schedule it out, put it on my calendar, um, because there's no shot. Just ignore the poltergeist. Um, yeah, there's a problem. Nobody will help me get the life I want. Doesn't matter. It's on you, bro. It's nobody is obligated to help you. So that if just to be clear, if I rip this thing out of my ear again, I'm gonna crash the fuck out. Absolutely, like no shot that I just keep my shit together, because it's pissing me off. And this is something that like people don't seem to realize. It's like, well, they don't want to change their like themselves. They don't want to like work on it mentally or emotionally or anything like that. They also don't want to change their job, and they also don't want to change their spending habits, and they also don't want to change their eating habits, and they also don't want to change like any sort of like physical activity or anything that they're not doing. They don't want to start implementing that, and so it's like, okay, so you don't want to change any of that. No, not really. But you want your life to get better. Well, yeah, duh. How do you think it's going to get better? Well, I don't know. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? This isn't a real conversation, man. Casual Exchanges podcast, where most of the time we are going to try to walk through thinking about novel, everyday, normie problems. But this is going to be a lot like those super rare coffee beans that they pull out of like elephant shit. Okay, well, sometimes you get those rare coffee beans, other times it's just a pile of elephant shit. Welcome in. It's a simple habit that made your life significantly better. Stop smoking crack. My boyfriend showed me his porn and I'm not sure what to think. Oof. Dicey game, dicey game. He's for sure got some kinks. Oh no. Is it enough to marry someone just because you both love the same music and you love her music? You love her music taste for life. I'm so sorry. Is there anything else? I hate to be that guy, but like, sharing music taste is pretty cool. Sick, dope, whatever the kids are saying. I feel like there are potentially more important things we should be discussing, especially if we're talking about marriage. I don't know. Technically, I've never been married. Maybe I'm not an authority on this. But if I had to guess, oof. If a book were written about your life, what would the title be? Hell in a Handbasket. What's the most painful realization about yourself? Wow. I feel like is this gives us room like for potential introspection, reflection, self-evaluation. My concern is that because it's Reddit, everybody's just going to be like, I'm always going to be broke. I'm always going to have to work. I'm always going to be the system's always going to be rigged against me. It's just going to be the dumbest, most brain dead shit. And I'm going to waste 20 fucking minutes and countless brain cells trying to sift through it. I should be nicer. Why am I so grumpy on this Friday night? Come on, chill out, bro. Chill out. Let's see. Anything? So a couple of things. I think these weren't necessarily painful, but um, they were. I would say that they were impactful, and they were painful in the sense that like they were inflection points that helped me realize that like I just needed to do better, which is kind of a bitter pill to swallow. I didn't have any interest in like going out and like forming a bunch of relationships like outside of work and stuff like that. Also, I didn't have like a ton of ambition. The bar was pretty much just like, don't be the laziest fucking guy on the team, right? Make sure that other people aren't having to pull your weight, and like live and let live. Like I was real cool to just like let other people, if other people are being lazy and shit like that, hey, do whatever the fuck you want, bro. You just don't get up in my shit, and it's all good. I didn't have any really like leadership ambition, and the leadership I got along the most with was always the ones who just kind of like let me be, for the most part. Like give me a task and then let me run the task, and then I'll come find you when I'm done. It's all good. Like you don't need to try to hold my hand. So it was very much just like a chill. I wasn't laid back all the way because I've always had a bit of a sharp tongue and I've always been a little bit of a shit talker. But for the most part, it's like, all right, you do your thing, I'll do mine. It's all good. I don't give a fuck. And unfortunately, kind of just before I got into operations leadership, I realized that I couldn't carry that mentality and be in any sort of leadership. I realized that like if I wanted to take up the mantle of leadership, whether it was going to be for this promotion that I applied for, or just in life, right? Like being the fucking being the leader in my social circles or family or whatever have you, um, that I was going to have to be a little bit more involved. That there were going to have to be standards set, and more importantly than that, I was going to have to hold myself to the highest standard. Any standard that I impose, uh, among the people around me, mine was going to have to be higher, right? Because you can't lead from the back. Okay. Um. So this was tough. This was tough because again, I was living let live, but at the same time, that kind of whatever you want to call it, that shithead fucking part of me, that young fucking that teenage little devil on my shoulder, um, it was like, hey, somebody's talking shit, you hit him back, bro. You know what I mean? Like if somebody's messing with your shit, you got to mess back. You know what I mean? Like it was just this tit for tat. Um, where if there was any sort of like confrontation or anything like that, like de-escalation was never an option. It was always like, okay, I'm just gonna have the last word. I have a high tolerance for that kind of stuff, and so it's just real. And maybe I just have a fucking very aggressively annoying personality, um, to where it's just easy for me to get under people's skin. And I had to realize, I had to come to terms with the fact that like, yo, this cannot be my strategy. This cannot be my strategy in any sort of leadership role. If I'm going to take on that mantle and I'm serious about it, I have to hold myself to a higher standard. Sometimes that's going to mean de-escalating things, and unfortunately, taking the higher road, setting the higher standard, setting the bar, holding that line. Um, it couldn't just be like, all right, bitch, you want to go low? I can go lower. Like it had to change, and that was really tough for me because again, especially at this point in time, um, just sharp tongue, young kid. Like I worked relatively hard. Um, and so like it was just like a chill vibe. It was like if you like when you're in that position, you feel really untouchable because it feels like you can tell anybody just to fuck off. Um, like my finances were like good enough to where like I could leave that job, um, right? And there was nobody. There was nobody around that I really felt like had a ton of pull or control over me. Like I just kind of set my own bar, and it was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, fuck you. Um, and it had to change because I was going to have to actually hold myself to kind of these standards that I set up. It could no longer be the mentality that like, oh, okay, fuck you, I'm walking away. Like I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with you. It was going to have to be a little bit more head first into that kind of stuff and actually dealing with it and looking for solutions, which is a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass, especially when other people are involved because they're not always looking for solutions. So that was pretty tough. It was real tough. But it helped in the long run. That was so long winded. I need to shut the fuck up and get to this actual thread. Over time, just realizing how hard it is to change. Many years ago, I had thoughts about where I would be now, and the reality is, I haven't improved nearly as much as I'd hoped. Yeah, there's another thing that it's weird because you hear it all the fucking time, and yet people still fall into the trap. But yeah, like if you don't change, like look at your life right now. If you change nothing about yourself, um, not a whole lot in your life is going to change. You know what I mean? And this is something that like people don't seem to realize. It's like, well, they don't want to change their like themselves. They don't want to like work on it mentally or emotionally or anything like that. They also don't want to change their job. And they also don't want to change their spending habits, and they also don't want to change their eating habits, and they also don't want to change like any sort of like physical activity or anything that they're not doing. They don't want to start implementing that, and so it's like, okay, so you don't want to change any of that. No, not really. Um, but you want your life to get better. Well, yeah, duh. How do you think it's going to get better? Well, I don't know. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? This isn't a real conversation, man. Um, so it is. This is why I try to put a lot of emphasis. And just to be clear, unfortunately, like people do not see things my way. um, like I constantly have to try to reinforce this stuff, even with people in like my inner circle, because it is very much like you are a creature of habit. You have things so fucking deeply ingrained in you, um, that uh, the only way to change them is fucking rip that shit out, bro. Rip that shit out by the stem, by the roots. Um, and it takes a lot more work. Yeah, this is a really tough one. That I create all my own suffering? This sounds like super profound and super like pessimistic, but like this is something that like for some reason people don't realize. Like how many of the fucked up situations um or the things in your life that like you just don't care for, how many of them just like spontaneously appeared? How many of them are truly in no way shape or form an extension of a decision or an action that you took? Um because it's your life. If you don't like your job, why are you there? You took on that job. Nobody forced it upon you. You know what I mean? If you don't like where you're at physically, it's like that's your body. You built it. You know what I mean? I think there are really good conversations to be had around like how do we change this mentality? How do we get people more engaged in these types of things? How do we make it more appealing? I think those are all valid things to talk about. But again, it's like at the individual level, this goes back to my realization that I was talking about. Like at some point, I just had to accept that like, yo, I don't like this thing. Nobody else is trying to change it. I guess that means I have to change it, and I have to put the work in. Fuck. It sucks, but it's what it is. Yep, same. I know what I need to change, but I don't. Yeah, this is really tough. I check in on my friends regularly because I want anyone to check in on me. This is really tough because and this is actually something I'm super terrible about, and I'm trying to get better. Um, but I'm somebody who like I just do not think about reaching out. Like I have my daily schedule, especially like during the work week. I have my fucking routine. Um, and I'm trying to add like more to it, like reading audiobooks, like all this shit, right? And so I'm really trying to cram and maximize my productivity during the week. And so during the week, I just do not really stray from that routine unless something needs to get done, unless we got to go fill the water jugs, unless something happens with the car, unless like something comes up that requires me to divert my energy. Um, and reaching out, man, it's super tough. It's not even on my radar, honestly. Which I mean, it's fucked up to say. I should be checking in on people, but it just doesn't even hit my radar. Um, like I think, but I need to get better. So like, just off the top of my head, like if I really want to improve on this, it's not gonna happen by itself. I need to like start setting notes, reminders, put it on the fucking whiteboard. I need to do something so that it pops out at me. Maybe I need to fucking schedule it out, put it on my calendar, um, because there's no shot. Just ignore the poltergeist. But there's no shot that it's just gonna tomorrow. I'm just gonna be like, oh my god, I need to check in on all these people. Like it's not gonna happen. I'm like just focus on other shit. You know what I mean? Stuff. Hmm. Like some of these people, bro. I'm impossible to love because of my own self sabotage. That's tough. That's tough. Fuck yeah, this is a tough one. I don't know about this person becoming their mother, but sitting in front of a screen and not accomplishing anything. This is so fucking tough, man. I say as I'm literally sitting in front of a screen. Um, this one's really tough, and this I'm trying very diligently to cut down on like my screen time and stuff, um, because I do think there is like too often it's not productive. Like all of the time I spend scrolling, I gotta cut that down. I gotta fill in those empty spaces with audiobooks, with books, with things that are actually productive. Um, and don't get me wrong, like again, like if I get it down to like an hour a day or something like that, like sick, you know what I mean? Like that'll be sick. A fucking hour of scrolling intermittently, and then maybe an hour of TV at the end of the day with my girl. Um, but fuck, dude, if I'm up there anything past 2 hours, like I gotta start shutting that shit down, bro. It's a time sink, dude. Like, what are you doing? And don't get me wrong, okay? I like the degenerate fucking dick memes that would get me banned on any real platform in a fucking microsecond. Look, I love all that shit too. Okay, it tickles a part of my soul. I don't know if it's actually my soul, the opposite of my soul. In a way that nothing else really does. But at the same time, again, it takes away from all the other stuff. It's a fucking audiobook I could be reading. It's a real book I could be reading. It's an opportunity. I'm taking away from the opportunity to actually learn something, or to actually invest in some facet of my life. Um, but it's super fucking. I keep ripping this thing out of my fucking ear, dude. It's so fucking annoying. Jesus. But it's super tough. But I think, and let alone, like, I can't convince anybody to do this, to try to cut down on their screen time. Nobody, everybody, immediately, fuck off, shut up, I don't care. It's crazy if you think about it. Like, we literally have like a borderline fucking addiction, bro. It's crazy. And that's all, folks. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you didn't like the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. That way you can talk shit on my next video too, all right?